Good afternoon and welcome to Leadership Stars with Linda Patten. As you may remember, this program is designed for leaders or individuals who are reluctant leaders and not really sure that they want to step into leadership. I found that this is an epidemic among women, and so I wanted to bring to you individuals who are leaders in their own profession. So while I was looking at network marketing, multi-level marketing, and direct sales leaders, I found them reluctant to be on the program just yet, but they wanted to hear from other leaders in other industries and the kinds of things that they were doing, how they got there, and what challenges they had when they stepped into leadership. So we're bringing you programs now that reflect those kinds of individuals. And I have the honor and privilege today to bring on my show a very special friend, as well as a just wonderful priestess of play and fun. And I know you're going to enjoy our conversation with her today. And that's Kerry Hargraves. Now, I read her bio, and I have to read it to you because it's absolutely spectacular, and it so reflects who she is as a leader. So she says, I'm pleased to welcome the ever playful, bubble blowing, talk much, Kerry Hargraves on our program. After over 30 years of struggling to be a serious, proper, straight-laced corporate adult that we expected to become, she gave it all up, brought several hundred plastic pink flamingos, and started on a journey to find herself. If you want to know what flamingos were for, you'll just have to ask her, and I may ask her somewhere here in the program. Thanks to those flamingos, she found her passion and mission in life, increasing the level of happiness and joy in the universe. So how does she do that, you might ask? She does it by working with women entering or in the second half of life to help them to become bodacious, badass, old broads, instead of sweet little old ladies. So I'd love to welcome Kerry to our show today. Kerry?
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You said it's hot there in Arizona.
It's hot here in Arizona. We're going to be in the mid to high 90s today.
Aha. And I see you have your fan on to keep you cool.
I do. Got one overhead, one beside me, windows open because it's still not too bad outside.
Oh, that's good. And of course, you have no humidity, right?
That's right. Like, don't rub two sticks together. They'll burst into flames.
Oh, dear. Okay. So, Kerry, it's a question I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that has to do with their why. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about it later on in the show, but I'm really curious, why bodacious, badass old broads? How did that come about, and how did you get into being the priestess of play?
It took me a long time to work my way around to accepting that being playful is actually a valid thing to do in the world. We all get trained out of it when we're little because we go into school and now you have to like sit down and be quiet and behave because the teachers need to have control. I understand why it happens.
Yeah.
But we get into that groove and we begin to think that that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled. I was very successful, but I struggled. And it wasn't until I finally accepted play into my life that the struggle started to drop away.
Yeah.
And because I'm a learner and a reader, I started studying on it and discovered that there's actually like real honest to God scientific support for adults being playful. So that gave me permission to legitimately pursue play.
Uh-huh.
And then the bodacious, badass old broads came along when I finally got honest about who it was I wanted to play with. That's who I want to play with. And if I can't find them, by God, I'll create them.
So yeah, if you can't find them, create them, right?
Right.
I know you've just moved from the Bay Area out to Arizona. How are you doing as far as being able to uncover your tribe and bringing them into the playland that you have planned for them?
Well, it was a kind of a rocky start. I haven't been here long, and I haven't been unpacked long enough to actually have clothes to wear to a networking event. So I went to my first one and was not very encouraging. There were, lots of lovely women, right age range and all, but not the right vibe, and all very wrapped up in their multi-level marketing businesses, which means actually got leads for you, my dear. And but I went to the second one, and I walked into this lunch meeting out at a local airport and I looked at the leader and went, I have found my tribe. There were at least 5 women in there that after I did my introduction and practically threw their cards at me and said, I'll go out with you. We'll go drink wine. So I have hope.
That's great. So, Kerry, let's start at the beginning. I love what you're doing in Arizona, but let's start at the beginning. In your introduction, we talked about the fact that you spend some time in corporate. So tell us just a little bit about that.
I didn't intend to go into corporate. Actually, I didn't intend to go into pretty much anything I did. I drifted into it, had a job actually as a secretary, which is funny because I don't type. And it seems that if I stand still long enough in any one spot, somebody's going to put me in charge of something. So my boss, that I was the quasi-secretary for, decided that I could be the supervisor of a production line. Next thing I knew, I was the manager of the production department. Within 4 years, I was the general manager of that division. I eventually got myself up to, I was doing the vice president's work, but you didn't give women vice president titles in those days. Yeah. But I had responsibility for all of manufacturing for a medical device company, the plastics, the electronics, the injection molding, 800 and some odd employees, 5 buildings, and it all just happened because somebody would go, can you do this? And I would go, sure, and then figure out how to do it.
Kerry, would you say that you were a reluctant leader, that you didn't step into leadership, but it sort of enveloped you?
Yes, absolutely. Probably my first real mentor boss, when he was building out his plan for the organization, sat me down one day and said, what would you rather do? Would you rather supervise people, or would you rather handle materials? That was a no-brainer. I went, I'll take the materials.
Oh, interesting.
All right, I'll think about that. And about 4 days later, he came back and said, I want you to interview this materials manager. You're going to run the people.
So I think this is a really classic sort of situation that women find themselves in. You basically had no intention of leading anyone or anything. You came in as a secretary, you're going to do your job, and that was the sum and substance of it. But people saw something in you that said, Kerry Hargraves is a leader, and we're going to just keep adding things, and you kept saying yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you were a VP in action only, not in title.
Exactly. The lovely 70s and early 80s.
I know how that goes. I had similar situations. I mean, at least in the military, they can't do that to you, at least when you're on active duty. If you held the rank, you have to, in essence, be leading. Because we don't manage, of course. However, I did find it interesting when I went into the reserves, and it was the male officers who needed the slots in the reserves and in the National Guard. And so they were given positions like in administration where they had absolutely no talent and no skills. And what they do is they hire the assistant, generally as a woman who was an adjutant general officer, and have her do all the work, but he got all the credit. So I understand completely where you're coming from. So I know you spent a fair amount of time in corporate, in various different companies, not just the one doing plastics. Is that true?
Right. That's true.
And
Go ahead.
and as I remember, you were traveling all over the country doing something where you were in like New York for long periods of time, and then came back and forth and that kind of thing. Is that true?
When I left, my pattern with my corporate career is I tended to go into startup companies,
Okay.
do very well with them, and as all startups do, they either go public or they get acquired or do both.
Right. Or they go bankrupt.
Or they go bankrupt. Fortunately, that happened after I was out of corporate, that experience.
Okay.
I didn't realize I had to market myself to the new companies when they came in. So we would get acquired and they would send in the gunslinger to clean out all of the people that they promised nothing was going to change for. By the way, whenever you hear that, nothing's going to change, update your resume. You're on your way out. So new management would come in, and because I had been so successful in my positions, it never occurred to me that I had to actually actively market myself to new management. Okay. And so I would end up on the layoff list. And usually I've got a very, very tasty little buyout to go away quietly. And so I would consider that my retirement. So I would retire for as long as that money lasted. During a couple of those hiatuses, I became a consultant. And so I had projects in New York and in LA, and it's an absolutely lovely lifestyle, but it is not conducive to maintaining a relationship at home. You develop a lot of very bad habits.
Yes, I know. And the other thing you get comfortable with, because I traveled for 3 years when we were in Los Angeles, and then coming up here as a consultant, I was traveling around quite a bit as well. And what I found was I really discovered self-care and how wonderful it was to be able to do something just for me. And it was really hard when I quit traveling cold turkey and all of a sudden my husband was there all the time. We had to learn how to be together all the time again. It was an interesting transition. So Kerry, I know you I guess it was on one of your layoffs that you transitioned from corporate to flamingos.
Oh,
how did that happen?
One of my corporate jobs, I was living in the Bay Area by now. Nice medical device company, fast tracking to lots of money, stock options, all that. So I bought a house. Ooh. 11 days after escrow closed, I got laid off. And I took a desperation job. I don't care. I should have, I don't know, sold the house. Never, ever take a desperation job. It was horrible. That's what drove me out of corporate. As I was a customer service manager for a year in a third-party software manufacturer, the world's worst industry. Then they put me in charge of manufacturing, which is the worst part of the worst job industry. I lasted a year. I survived the Microsoft 95 release. I had a futon in my office because you never got to go home. If I wasn't taking a nap on it, some of my line supervisors were. It was just horrible. Once we got that product out the door, I marched into my boss's office, looked him in the eye and went, I'm giving myself an early birthday present. I quit. Ooh. And walked out.
That's serious.
It was serious. I have never quit a job before, which just was appalling. And eventually had to sell the house and take temp jobs. And I had a temp job where I was doing computer technology work for a general contractor, about a 30-minute commute. And it was on that commute that flamingos came into my life.
Ooh, live ones or plastic ones?
At those times, they were virtual plastic ones.
Okay.
It was a radio interview. I was driving along listening to the radio, which was a little unusual because the car was about the only time I was ever like in silence, but I had the radio on for some reason. DJ was interviewing somebody whose name I didn't get. And he was telling stories about pink plastic flamingos and all of the strange things that people do with them and let him know about. I had no idea why. Pictures of them on wedding cakes, pictures of them in outfits on vacation. There are even people who rent them by the flock. People who rent them by the flock. That phrase burrowed into my brain, took root, and started to grow. It's like, that is so bizarre. I have to know more. I got out to my consulting job. I jumped out of the car, ran in, and went, gotta have a phone. Called the radio station. Who was that? How do I get a hold of him? They gave me the number for his company, which was in Massachusetts. I called them. I got a really excellent customer service person. I told her what I was doing. He'd been interviewed about flamingo flocks. Well, we don't do that. We're the manufacturer. But here's the number of the company that does it. They're our second largest customer purchasing pink plastic flamingos. And it was a company called Flamingo Surprise in Chicago. My next call was to them. I got a hold of the owner there. So I heard about this. I have to know more. Tell me more. How do I get started? How do I do it? And I made such a pest of myself that one call, he finally said, if you fly back here, we'll show you the business and we'll figure out how to put together a start package for you.
Wow.
So I was on the next red eye to Chicago. They drove me around, showed me the business, put together a startup package, which included them shipping me several hundred pink plastic flamingos and some plastic cows and some plastic teddy bears and some plastic penguins and a bunch of signboards and some letters. I waited eagerly for the truck to arrive, and actually 24 hours after the truck unloaded all of these huge boxes of plastic stuff in front of my place, I had my first order.
Wow, that's impressive.
It was so exciting.
Had you done any marketing to make that happen, or did it just serendipitously?
Well, I was so excited about it. I just told everybody I knew what I was going to be doing. And after any number of them looked at me like I had two heads, but some of them got it. And I'm, oh, that is so cool. And so the couple of the people who got it were my first orders. Plus the place in Chicago, they would get calls from around, and he had gotten a call for an order in California. So before I could even take money, he had taken an order for me and sent me a check.
That's awesome. Now, Kerry, this is very much a leadership role. Here's something that's not here. You started it and grew it to a fairly good sized business.
It could have been bigger, but you know, it was enough to support me and my husband and pay the rent and the bills and for itself. And it was a labor of love. I wasn't trying to become a mogul at it. I just wanted to do it because I loved doing it.
Yeah, well, I can see that because you love the surprise. You love seeing the joy on people's faces when you do something like that. I have a question though. Do you leave the flamingos there? I mean, you don't come back and pick them up?
Yes. I never actually got to see anybody get the surprise because we went out in the middle of the night, setting up in the front yard. And it was anonymous. Somebody called and went, who did this? We wouldn't tell them. Stayed all day. And then we would come back sometime after dark. Usually in the middle of the night, we were out on another delivery run and picked them up again. So we didn't get to see that look when they stepped out the front door and went, what's this in my front yard?
It's too bad you couldn't have had a little, spy cam.
Yeah.
Flamingos to take a picture of that face when they looked at the flamingos.
Yeah.
So, Kerry, tell me, how did you get from flamingos to what you're doing today? And what are you doing today?
Yeah, well, how I got to there, in my penchant to say, sure, I can do that. A friend of mine, I was doing the flamingo business, but a friend of mine bought an awning shop. And she had an awning that needed a company name painted on it.
Okay.
And it was too big for the guy she was using down in Santa Cruz. So she called me, as she does whenever she needs something that needs to be done that she doesn't know who to call. She goes, Kerry, can you paint an awning? Sure. No idea. But that's what the internet's for. How do you paint an awning? Did a little quick research, found out what kind of paint to use, figured out a way to create a pattern. She delivered the awning to me. I should have pictures of the first one because it was so ridiculous. But I got this 40-foot awning painted, sent it down to her, and she went, that's really cool. You want to do another one? I did. And then one day we did an awning for a client, and he goes, can you make a real sign? And she went, sure, and called me and went, Kerry, can you make a real sign? Suddenly, I'm a sign maker. So I'm doing flamingos at night. I'm making custom-made signs during the day. And I'm going to networking events and walking in the door going, who am I in this meeting?
Ah.
And I was at a wine networking with a business coach you and I both love.
Yes.
And she let it be known that she was a marketing expert. And I went, okay, marketing expert, this is my situation. I have a sign business. I have a flamingo business. How do I market the two of them? And her comment to me was, find out what is the umbrella that reunites these two businesses and market that.
Okay.
Well, that threw me for a loop. It's like, what the hell's the umbrella over these two things? But that's what led me to play.
Uh-huh.
Because that's what they were for me. They were fun. I did it for my enjoyment and the enjoyment of the people who were the recipient of my services.
Right.
It was all positive and upbeat, and I loved doing them. And so it's like, well, okay, that doesn't tell me how to market these two businesses, but it does tell me what my passion is.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I sold the flamingo business, I retired the sign business, and decided to try and figure out how to earn by playing. I'm still trying to figure that one out, but it's fun trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I know you did all sorts of fun stuff here. You had an adventure club where you went out and did various things like dressing up as superheroes and that kind of thing. And I know you're thinking about doing something similar to that in Arizona.
Yes.
We also talked something about you becoming a restaurant critic, in essence, and posting fun blogs about the restaurant and what they're doing and how much fun it is and that kind of thing. Is that still on your plate as a possibility?
That is very definitely on my plate as a possibility. I actually transferred the adventure club to Arizona. And I've had a couple of people join it from over here and then email me going, well, there aren't any events. So they're very eager for it. I've emailed back each one of them going, yeah, but I just got here. Let me get unpacked first. I'll get there on us, I promise. Because it's a great way for me to explore the area and not have to do it alone. All right, I've never been to this place. I'll gather a group of people and we'll all go.
Right. Sounds like fun.
It is.
And I know that's the one thing I love about you is that lightness, that funness. So from my perspective, what it shows is that being a leader doesn't necessarily need to be serious and formal and that kind of thing. You can use that fun and that passion to really inspire and motivate others to follow their dreams and to follow their visions. So one of my questions, I guess, to you is you've learned a whole bunch of lessons in your life, from corporate lessons to lessons around consulting to lessons from flamingos. I know I did lessons from geese, so I'm sure there must be lessons in flamingos too. What would you share with the audience about your life and the kinds of lessons that you've learned that you think that they might find interesting and useful?
Well, I think the biggest lesson is say yes. If it looks interesting, but you're a little bit scared you can't do it, say yes anyway. And then the corollary lesson to that is, after you've said yes, learn to recognize when you need to now say no, when to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I was a long time learning that lesson. Like I said, when I finally walked in on that last job and said I quit, that was the first time I had ever quit a job. And there were many jobs before that I should have quit.
Yeah.
But I stayed with them and became, well, when I get bored, I become kind of a problem child. And so I became a problem child and got my ass fired more than once. So it took me a long time to learn to say no. But saying yes, try it. What's the worst that can happen? If you make a decision and say yes, you can always change your mind and go no. That goes for jobs, it goes for businesses, it goes for hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
It goes for relationships, although I would recommend getting your yeses and nos in early.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, don't say yes and like 4 years later go, well, I should have said no three-quarter years ago, but I'll do it now. That's just really hard on everybody.
Yes.
And it requires being honest with yourself.
Okay, Kerry, what I love about you is the fact that you do say yes. And oftentimes you don't think about it, you just do it. I mean, in looking at your life so far, and every time somebody said, could you do it, you go, yeah. And you found a way to make that happen. You either learned it or you experienced it or you fumbled along or whatever. And I love the fact that you are my tech person as well. Whenever I say, could we do, and you go, I don't know, but I'll check it out. And you've always found a way for me to be spectacular. And I really appreciate that. And I think that's also part of being a leader, is to be able to bring people with you. And I especially love when you take us on, fun adventures and that kind of thing. By the way, you haven't blown any bubbles yet today. You must have some. Oh, okay. I hope you all can see that.
Probably not the best lighting for them, but there they are, right in front of me.
And again, that it's that lightness, because life can be so heavy and we get so wrapped up in our own stories and our own angst that we don't always take time to have fun and take time to laugh, or to just be able to relax into something. And I know self-care is something that we as leaders oftentimes don't take advantage of. So I love the fact that you've got a business that encourages people to have fun, to get over themselves, and to be actually able to take some self-care and just experience something that they've never experienced before. Well,
it's a choice. We can choose to stay in the angst and the uncomfortable and the heavy, or we can choose to step away from that and explore the lighter and the happier. If something's going on that's heavy, and it'll still be there, you can go back to it and wallow in it if you want. But it's been my experience that if you step away from that and embrace the lighter sides, that heavy angst, nasty stuff tends to lighten as well. So if you have to go back to it, it isn't as heavy a burden anymore. Or it may have like, what was I worried about? There's nothing there.
Right, or transformed into something positive too.
Yes.
Okay. So Kerry, I know that you have a free gift for our listeners. Would you like to tell us about it and how to get it?
I do. I have a free gift. It's a little ebook. It's 29 pages. I guess that's a little ebook. 10 fuel-injected activities I really need to rename this thing. I can't remember it. Essentially, it's to lighten your load and help you release your inner child. So it's 10 things that if you find yourself bored or stressed, you just pick one out of the ebook and do it. It'll take just a few minutes. You'll find that you come back to your task or whatever it is you're trying to get done in a much lighter frame of mind. You'll be much more productive. You'll have a smile on your face. or you can just choose to go all out with one of them. It's like there's one that like you're just tearing your hair out over trying to write something. Put on some crazy tune, jump up out of your chair and dance. Like wave your arms in the air and shake your behind and jump up and down, and don't worry about what anybody's thinking. As a matter of fact, if somebody sees you being silly, you're actually performing a public service, because you don't know what they're going through. And if they see you acting goofy, it changes their mindset. Even if they decide to be judgmental about it, at least it takes their attention away. But most people will go, and it'll make them smile. And you can change lives by making people smile. So it's a public service to be seen being silly.
I love it. I love it. And by the way, the title of that is 10 fuel-injected activities to feel brand new and release your inner child.
Well, I got everything but the brand new.
And you want to give them the link, and that will also be on my website?
Yes, and unfortunately, it's www.kerryhargraves.com. It's KERRYHARGRAVES.com/yourfreegift.com.
No, leadership-stars-in.
Oh, leadership-stars.opt-in. Okay.
That's
I'm glad you got it written down. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see my notes because I'm being vain and the light's glinting off of the light. So I confess, I'm vain. I can't read.
No problem. I can't either. So here we go. So thank you so much, Kerry, for the free gift and for the fabulous advice. And for those of you who would like to step in, step up, and step out into leadership, and to discover whether you truly are a leader, and you saw the things that Kerry said yes to that allowed her to step into a leadership role, I have a sort of a "you are here" assessment for you. So if you go to Dare, the number 2, Dream with Linda /herding-cats-2, you'll get a copy of the assessment, which you can fill out, and it's just everyday things that we do that really show that you are a leader. And on top of that, you'll get a download of the first lesson in the first step of my 12-step program, The Art of Herding Cats, Leading Teams of Leaders. So that information will be on the website, as well as will be on the description of this particular program. So again, Kerry, I'd love to thank you for being here and being my guest today. It's been so much fun. I love spending time with you, and this has been a very informative plus a very playful half hour.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and it was fun.
Great, and we'll talk soon. For those of you who are listening to this on a regular basis, we do at least one a month. I actually have a second one scheduled this week with Christine Hardy, so you might want to listen in on that. And later this month, I'm talking to Ariana Newcomer, so don't miss any of those. Thank you so very much, and be courageous, dare to lead.